We're 3 months away from the US presidential election and the race could not be closer. Here with his views on that election race and his favourite subject of US foreign policy, I'm joined by US Senator and former presidential candidate himself, John McCain. Mr McCain, thank you for talking to Reuters. I want to start off, what was your reaction to the Democratic National Convention?
I thought they did an excellent job in many respects. Certainly the First Lady gave a very strong speech, and some of the other speakers, the mayor of San Antonio. But I thought the president's speech was not that impactful because he didn't really talk about how we're going to fix the economy. I mean, he certainly was critical of Republicans and all that, but he didn't give a blueprint to bring us out of the difficulties that we're in. And then, of course, to his misfortune, the jobs report the morning after obviously took a lot of the air out of that balloon.
Unemployment is high, very high. The economy is depressed. Debt levels, the national debt is at record high, above $16 trillion. Why isn't Mitt Romney racing ahead in the polls?
I think that Mitt Romney's challenge is, quote, likability. People are not only going to be asking themselves, are you better off than you were 4 years ago, but they're going to be asking another question, and that is, am I going to be better off 4 years from now? And they have not yet been sold that Mitt Romney will make sure that happens.
You mentioned President Obama's speech. Mitt Romney's speech at the Republican convention. Polls afterwards showed that the bounce that the Republican Party got was one of the lowest in decades after a GOP convention. That doesn't augur well for November.
No, and I wish that they had gotten a larger bounce. One of the things that we found is that in the Republican convention, a huge number of people watch Fox. Those are people who are Romney supporters. In the Democrat convention, a huge number of people watched MSNBC. That's people who are already convinced of the Democrat position. So the Democrat convention didn't get a bounce, obviously, and neither did the Republican. There's an argument that I think can be made for a 1 or 2 day convention.
Why didn't Mitt Romney make any mention whatsoever of Afghanistan in his convention speech?
He had been at the American Legion before, the day before, and talked about it a lot, but I'll give you some straight talk. He should have talked about it some more, and I'm confident on the campaign trail he will be talking about it some more. And we need to talk more about our veterans. I've got to say that the First Lady and President Obama have talked a lot about veterans. But it's also true that veterans' unemployment in America is 14%, when the overall unemployment numbers are 8.1. So to talk about it is one thing, but when you look at the record of what they've done for veterans, it's not that impressive.
Another area of foreign policy of huge importance is Syria, and of course you've been to the region in the last week or two. People around the world are looking on in horror at the carnage and slaughter going on there. What should the US be doing? Why isn't the US taking a lead?
To the shame of Europe and the United States, to the shame of people all over the world that are sitting by and watching this massacre take place, we need American leadership. The President of the United States hasn't even spoken up on behalf of these people. The only statement he's made in a long time is that if the Syrians use chemical weapons, then that's a red line. Does that mean that they can do anything else but? It requires American leadership. Turkish population are getting unhappy about the situation, and obviously the Saudis, Qatar, and others are helping with weapons, but it requires weapons to the people who are fighting the resistance, and it requires a safe zone such as the French president said we should consider.
Is that what Mitt Romney would do? Is that what a Romney White House would do?
I am confident that Mitt Romney would supply weapons to the opposition, particularly anti-tank weapons, and I hope that he would also come out for this safe zone, and in all candor, he is not yet. All the arguments and comments that people who are non-interventionists said would happen if we intervene have happened. We've got the chemical weapons problem. We've got floods of refugees. We've got the increased massacre and use of weapons such as jet aircraft attack helicopters and artillery by Bashar Assad. And very importantly, there's been a dramatic increase in number of Al-Qaeda and other extremists into the fight.
So why no intervention?
So I think the Americans are war-weary because of Iraq and Afghanistan. I think that it requires presidential leadership, which is absolutely missing. And it requires Europeans, frankly, who I know are absorbed with jobs in the economy the way that the United States is. But we've got to do the right thing, and we're not doing it to our everlasting shame.
Is an Israeli strike on Iran a unilateral Israeli strike on Iran? Is that more likely now than ever before?
I don't know if it's more likely than any point, but I do not believe that the Israelis feel that they can trust the United States with their nation's security, which no nation is going to put their security in the hands of another nation. Relations between the United States and Israel are not good. It's just a fact. And there's never been a relationship between the Prime Minister of Israel and the President of the United States. And it's almost like watching a train wreck, because the IAEA and others have said conclusively that the Iranians continue on their path towards the development of nuclear weapons. And at the same time, the negotiations, which have taken place in literally every capital in the world, have failed. And we are coming closer and closer to a point where both the United States and Iran are going to have to, and Israel are going to have to make a decision. The President of the United States has said it is, quote, unacceptable for Iran to have nuclear weapons. What's the scenario here? I cannot predict, but I do think that every day that goes by, the crisis becomes more difficult and probably more urgent.
Mr. McCain, thank you very much. That was US Senator and former presidential candidate John McCain talking to Reuters at the Ambrosetti Forum, Lake Como in Italy. I'm Jamie McGeever. This is Reuters.